very quickly, guys, before I introduce our very special speaker, that's what I just wanted to start on, is that we are slowly working through all the tourism content and getting it a little bit more up to date. It's all compliant, it's beautiful, but it's not necessarily been written by anybody within the tourism industry. It's compliant, but it's not been written with that in mind. So a lot of the things that we're looking at with the assessments will be some fun, interactive walking tours and this and that, and try and, where possible, give you some scenarios, conflict scenarios, real life conflict scenarios that I've had people yelling at me for, that we can put in there to use when you need. So it's a marathon, not a sprint. I'm only halfway there, really. So bear with me. If you find anything that's quite needs some work, just let me know and I'll have another look to see if I can fix it up or make it a little bit better for now. So I'd just like to introduce Troy. Troy Souza is from the WA Visitor Centre. He's the manager for Perth. Welcome, Troy. Thank you so much for meeting with us this time of day on a Tuesday. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Now, we were briefly talking before, because these amazing teachers are very passionate about tourism, and they deliver a lot of the tourism programs within the school. And I would love to see more schools deliver it, because I find the course itself is so heavily focused on customer service. I feel like it should be in every school for any job, because we deal with customers everywhere. So these amazing people go and spread the love and share the love of tourism. But it's really important, as vet is, that we hear what is happening from industry, real life people working in real life day-to-day jobs and challenges and opportunities. And you've had some interesting opportunities and crazy times of late. So we're hoping to quiz you on a couple of things if possible. So we'll get you started. Tell us a little bit about your journey about getting into the tourism industry.
Oh, yeah, for certain. So again, officially, thanks for having me. And it's great doing things like this, especially in light of what's happened, because it's created an interesting sort of atmosphere. So obviously, without customers walking through our doors, we've definitely been reviewing our operations, and a big part of that is our staff at the moment. So it's very relevant. So myself, I started off doing a tourism management degree at Curtin University. And that was a 4-year degree. And back then it was sort of graduating just around when the financial crisis happened. So quite similar conditions. It was very hard to get employment when I finished my degree. So I ended up having to do night audit at Holiday Inn, which was 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. 5 nights a week, which was an eye-opening experience and introduction to the industry, but definitely helped shape the person or worker I am at the moment. And then I went to hospitality and managed Araluen Golf Course and the food and beverage department there. Then didn't really like hospitality and went back to tourism, started working in the visitor centre as a casual for a couple of years, and then became assistant manager and then manager in about 2012 as such. So I've been managing the centre now for the last 8 years. And a centre, while it's privately run and operated, it is works very closely with Tourism WA. So do get to see the all perspectives of the industry, dealing with tours, tour operators, accommodation, events, everywhere. So yeah.
You work closely with all the visitor centres?
I'm actually the Vice President of the Visitor Centre Association of WA.
Wow.
So we've been speaking quite a lot with the visitor centres over the last few months and hearing what their struggles are. And in fact, our chair is meeting with the Tourism Minister tomorrow to express some of the challenges that we're facing. And a lot of it is actually with staff retention. So
yeah, okay. And I guess, let's not talk about COVID. It's a dirty word. Before COVID, what was the thing that you loved most about the industry? What did you enjoy about it?
Not to mention COVID, but COVID has kind of refocused what we loved about the industry so much, and that is travel. It's actually you're talking to people that want to do things that make them happy. So and sometimes that we need to really communicate that with our staff, which I know sounds surprising, but we have to do it on a regular basis, that your job is actually making people, you're actually helping them do something that makes them happy. So, and pretty much, because that was taken away from us during COVID, it's kind of refocused us to see that, that is exactly why we all love the job and why I love doing it. And it's essentially talking to people. So,
absolutely. And communication's the key. That's the thing. I think young people, the more we get them to practice to communicate, the better chances they've got of being successful in this industry, but any industry really.
Yeah.
Okay, so the question was, there have been significant changes with COVID-19. How has your industry been affected? Now, it's fair to say tourism's probably been affected the most out of any industry. Where do you want to start with that one?
Yeah, that's on the notes on the screen here. Where to start? It's obviously like immediately it was devastating. So I was actually away on annual leave when all the borders closed, as such. So so came back to the visitor centre in a vastly different way, and we're quite fortunate ourselves. It's been supported by Tourism Western Australia. A lot of the financial hardship for us, although we have suffered a little bit at the visitor centre, particularly with no customers, it's more of our sort of members and industry partners that we feel most sorry for. And in particular, the touring segment, tour companies, it's pretty much been an immediate stop to business. It's some of them to operate, it's pretty much impossible physical distancing in being able to operate in a financial sustainable way. So, and then of course not being able to plan, but more than anything is regional tourism operators, particularly the ones up north, has had the most devastating impact. Most of them only can make business in a very short, finite time of year. And because most of it has been obviously impacted significantly, they're probably not going to have meaningful revenue until the next year. So they're almost having no revenue for a good 18 months. Mm. So that was quite difficult. But on the more positive side of things, we've essentially the Visitor Centre helped Tourism WA out with an industry support team. And what we've been able to do is that we reached out to each individual businesses. There was about 1,000 phone calls made throughout the state. And, overwhelmingly, we were surprised that, there was a good 70% of the businesses were very confident once they applied for JobKeeper and the various sort of subsidy programs that they'll be still operational and ready to go when interstate and international travel's ready again. So even though we've had a significant impact, overall the industry is still positive, which is obviously good news for employment.
Yeah, absolutely, because they sort of paint a picture that every sort of tour operator, hotel is going to go under by this, but it doesn't really seem to. It's definitely dented, but it's not necessarily shutting down our tour operators.
Well, no, and I think what's happened, with my virtual background here at the moment, the Wander Out Yonder sort of campaign. So overwhelmingly over the last sort of public holiday, we do take on work experience. Yeah, good question. I'll talk about that. And something that we will be incorporating into our training program, most definitely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the interstate market is something that has been activated quite quickly, especially for all our regional parts of the industry. Margaret River, most of down south, Exmouth, they're all full for for the next school holiday period. So they're loving it. Yeah. However, the part of the industry that's still struggling is locally Perth here in the CBD, and also some of the and also, as I said, the touring companies, because locals are not necessarily going to hop on a day tour to the Pinnacles. They're just going to drive there.
Yeah. Do you think overall, though, that the industry, and we'll get to some of these questions in a moment in the chat, guys, but do you think as an industry as a whole have actually come closer together since the crisis?
Definitely. One of the things, part of the industry support team, that we were trying to talk to each supplier. I mean, some of them, this is the first time that a individual like Bed and Breakfast and Queriding's probably had a phone call from Tourism WA. So, there was a lot of Facebook groups sort of set up that were collecting different people from the industry. Personally, I was doing the phone calls to the Swan Valley wineries and such.
Yes. Yeah.
And that was quite a strong community, and it was very good to see some of them were cooperatively working together. You know, for example, the breweries were giving sort of unsold beer to the distilleries to make hand sanitizer from. So, you know, there was definitely people sort of coming together, and, you know, when they're sort of talking about when travel is permissible again, or when they're going to be able to do wine tastings, they're looking at doing deals where if you go to one winery, you'll get a discount to visit another one, that sort of thing as well. So
fantastic. Making the most of the opportunities, I suppose, and thinking outside the square. Okay, so let's answer some questions. So who is the chair of the Visitors Centre Association, if you happen to know?
Yep. So his name is Matt Norton. So he used to be the manager of the Margaret River Visitor Centre.
Okay.
So he's currently managing all the Margaret River attractions, such as the caves, the lighthouses, the tree walks. So at the moment, we're in a transitional period. I wasn't quite ready to become chair straight away. So for next year, 2021, I'll be taking on the role of chair of the Visitor Centre Association.
Oh, fantastic. Now, I know we have spoken a little bit about the association to minimise impact, and I know we've just been speaking about JobKeeper, contacting a lot of the operators to make sure. I'm not sure, Giovanna, if there's anything more you want to know. You can feel free to unmute yourself if you want to ask anything more to do with that. Do visitor centres take on work experience students? You just said yes, you do. Obviously not at the moment. Would that be the case?
We're actually officially reopening on the next Monday. So we've had to, like every business, have been ordering hygiene screens, which are actually very hard to get at the moment. So,
right. Yeah.
And we've had a number of staff that we had stood down. So we've got them in this week, just training in the COVID safety guidelines in terms of cleaning and hygiene and maintaining physical distance, that sort of thing.
Yep.
Once we sort of got a little bit more stability and get out through winter is when we would definitely be looking at incorporating work experience, definitely.
Okay, beautiful. Now, we were just talking about this before we let everyone into the meeting. We were talking about how your walk-in clients that used to come in and keep you busy, it's now virtual and via Facebook messaging and things like that. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, definitely. So it's good questions. I obviously can see here in the chat about virtual tourism as well. So before I talk about us sort of specifically in some of the other visitor centres, during the downtime, that's what we encourage a lot of tour operators and even accommodation providers to make VR footage. And I just obviously heard you guys talking about that before. That was extremely popular. It was some of our best reach that we had on most of our social posts. There's actually a website called Virtually Australia, and we've been encouraging people to load up all their experiences because it's the best way that we've been able to maintain contact with international and interstate markets. But not everyone has virtual footage or knows how to market it properly. So for our staff to be able to disseminate that information and actually inform customers, you know, what's the point of a virtual tour and, you know, how to communicate that to customers has taken a bit of a training to do. So, okay. But to answer your question is it's not just us. So we're just speaking to, when I've just actually finished a committee meeting with the Visitor Centre Association, and most of the regional VCs said, although their towns were full, during the public holiday and also with the easing restrictions, their walk-in traffic was still relatively low compared to the past. However, their digital inquiries were through the roof. We were pretty much almost double the same time last year. And same thing with ourselves. You know, we used to probably maybe average one Facebook message a day, but at the moment we're probably getting about 10 to 15, which is still small numbers, but it's definitely a larger increase. So where phone calls have kind of remained steady throughout. So, you know, we've had to train our staff on the fly on how to be able to converse because a lot of people treat Facebook Messenger as live chat, and there's an expectation that you're not going to be waiting a few hours to get a response if you open. You expect someone to respond to you quite rapidly, and it's definitely a more casual way of talking to customers. but they still you need to provide good information and be professional as well. So yeah, so it's definitely changed the way, and you'll definitely change the way that we look to employ in the future.
Yeah, and we were talking about the training requirements then of your staff, because a lot of them are volunteers, or may not have that knowledge on how to use that technology to communicate.
Yeah, so it's I haven't. It's definitely not been easy. So some of the responses I've seen have pause a little bit. So look, ourselves, we don't have volunteers specifically as such, but a lot of the regional visitor centres do. And, at the moment, most of them have been stood down from operations, but they are definitely being planned to bring back. And that was something that was talked about. And, we are sort of looking at possible grant sort of programs to be able to have an official sort of training program to aid both volunteers and also staff that don't have that background or experience, which is quite a lot of people in the visitor centre network at the moment don't have that sort of customer service skills, have excellent customer service skills, but don't necessarily translate to a social or digital platform.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know, because we've got another question about the virtual reality, and I've taken note of Virtually Australia, because that would be a great way for students to be able to go on and experience some virtual tours with tour operators. As a resource, is there anywhere else where teachers would be able to find these type of virtual reality tours to be able to showcase themselves?
Yep, so through westernaustralia.com. So there's quite a bit of virtual content on there. There's actually the digital team through the Adventure Awaits mini page. So it's a bit confusing. So Wonder Out Yonder is primarily focused on local West Australians. And there's another campaign called Adventure Awaits, which is aimed at international and interstate markets. And they've loaded a lot of virtual content on there. So not just for operators and tours, but of destinations. So they've got some really, really good content out there, and they're really popular as well when they're pushed out on Facebook, but they're loaded up on westernaustralia.com.
So where are they? So what's that, Ventura?
Adventure Awaits. Adventure
Awaits.
Yeah, that's the official hashtag.
Oh, yeah, and that's on westaustralia.com.
Yeah. If you want to, I'll be able to send the links through to Paul afterwards, so you can find where the resources are.
That'd be great. Now, with COVID, one of the questions here is, what do you think or expect the recovery rate will be based on your experience so far?
Yeah, so look, just from our experience, particularly sort of a lot of the visitor centres have opened with restricted hours, just responding to the less people walking in, but have remained open longer for non-contact customer inquiries. That's been really difficult to communicate to members of the public. So, because at the moment, Google's a little bit limited on how you can communicate that. So you're either closed or you're open. So not just closed for one thing and open for another.
Yep.
So that's definitely sort of created some challenges for that. But what we foresee as well is that, particularly for customers that do come in, it is a very intimate consultation process. Our bare sort of way of providing excellent customer service is usually over a brochure or map, and you're side by side with the customer writing out the itinerary and pointing things out for them to do. Yeah. And it's very, very close by. And, at the moment, it's going to be very impersonal doing that between a hygiene screen or doing it 1.5 metres away. Mm-hmm. So, and we're trying to train our staff to also be very polite if a staff member does come extremely close as well, and how to be able to still make that customer feel valued and deliver sort of excellent service. Yeah. So it's definitely going to be a challenge for us.
But for WA's perspective, being that our borders are shut and our intra-borders are now open, are you expecting now the Mandurahs, Southwest, the Exmouths to start getting back to some kind of normal?
Sort of. So with it depends what part of the industry you're kind of really talking about. So with the Southwest, they've gone really, really well.
Okay.
So since the restrictions have opened up, Margaret River has been awesome. However, Matt was actually from the Visitor Centre and was just talking about, from the outside, it looks like they're going really good.
Mm-hmm.
But with physical distancing, the caves, rather than having 40 people at a time on a tour, they can only take a max of 15. So while they're sort of booked out, and they're booked out for like next week or so, it's purely because their capacity has reduced so much. So, and, moving forward, like in terms of people's budgets and that sort of thing, it may take a while for it to fully recover. So it'll definitely sort of recover enough that, there'll be a bright sort of outlook on the way that visitation will be. But it's still definitely going to be at a reduced capacity. And with interstate travel sort of going to, I think a little bit closer than what we think is going to be permissible again. And for many Australians, they're going to be travelling within Australia and not overseas. And we're hoping, Western Australia is very much hoping to get a slice of that increased market.
Yeah.
But there's still going to be a lag effect. It's, it's not going to hop onto a plane and plan a 3-week holiday to West Australia as soon as the restrictions are eased.
Yes.
So, we're still just, us visitor centres specifically and other parts of the industry are just finding ways to survive for long enough.
Yeah, I don't know if it's Paul or Kemp have just put on, before COVID, Australian spent $5 billion annually travelling overseas. Can WA tourism take advantage of this? Hopefully we can get a lot of it.
Definitely. I mean, it was actually what was discussed in Tourism WA is that, the stats from Perth Airport was that per year there's 500,000 West Australians alone that go to Bali, let alone overseas, a year. So obviously with the interstate campaign where we're banking on that, would get even a small portion of that market will be more than what is normal.
Yeah, Giovanna's just made a good point. So will WA be for sale? So when does it look like that WA is going to start getting promoted to the rest of the world? Come over.
Yeah, that's literally the $1 million question.
I know.
So look, interstate is still very active. So from Tourism WA's point of view, they're still partnering with people like Flight Centre and Hello World, even though that part of the industry is significantly been impacted in terms of their stores. Yeah. But certainly sort of from being the call to action for many interstate campaigns, that is still, those links are still being maintained. The administration office in Sydney is still being staffed, and I know that will be continue to be staffed properly. And so I think as soon as the announcement is made that you can travel, the campaigns will be pushed out quite aggressively.
Yeah.
But international, that's not sure. There's staff in each of all the major markets like Singapore, Malaysia, Japan, North America. So they're all actively still employed and still actively meeting with wholesale partners over there just to maintain their relationships. But in terms of active marketing, probably not until early 2021.
Yeah. And the fact that we deal with young people within the classroom, it's important that we're sharing the skills and knowledge that is required if they wanted to get a job in the industry. And being that it could be hotels, airlines, tourism operators, wherever it may be, I know it's so vast. But what would you say are the skills and knowledge and the requirements that you would be looking for in a young person?
So it's changed, but it hasn't changed. The number one sort of thing that we always look for is customer service skills. And look, primarily the hardest customer service skills for us to train on the job is still face-to-face customer service skills. And, and that's what and for ourselves, that's what our interviewer process is like. It's not answering serious questions as such. Yeah. It is heavily based on role playing and that sort of thing as well. So, because it's sometimes the hardest thing for us to judge in the interview process is how they'll react in front of a customer. So
absolutely,
I don't think that's going to change at all. So, and that's essentially being able to carry a conversation in a casual environment exactly like this, so that's not going to change. However, of course, in light of what's happened recently, that can't be the only skill that a prospective young person can have. What we've found a lot in this downtime is that we've had to review our operations quite heavily from rewriting our policy documents, rewriting sort of training, creating sort of content for virtual and also social media, and sort of reviewing a lot of our operations. However, because of tighter budgets, it's required a lot of managers from any sort of parts of the tourism industry to actually work in the business a lot more and deal direct with customers. So I've been needing help from my existing staff to help me with those sort of tasks. And they don't necessarily have that background, and it's been a lot harder to designate those sorts of roles to them, basically, and also to make sure that they keep being gainfully employed as well.
Yes.
So in terms of the future skills that we're requiring, that we'd be looking for is, yes, customer service number one, but if they have a background in being able to use Microsoft Office, I know it's like something that you have on an ad that's always said, desirable use of Microsoft Office, and it kind of just gets skimmed over. You ask them and they say yes. We definitely be testing that during the interview process to see if they actually have a basic to intermediate skill level with those programs.
So if they applied for a job with you and they sent through a resume, are you looking for them to have a basic understanding, of the tourism industry through study, like a qualification, so that they've got a bit of an idea?
Yeah, so at the very, very minimum, like a Cert 3 is what we're sort of looking for in tourism travel, and sort of preferably somewhere, preferably like either a diploma sort of as well. So yeah. Most of our past students, we've got quite a few students that we've employed through both North and South Metro.
Yep.
Well. And yeah, they've been really, really valuable students, and some of them are still here.
Yes.
So, and they've completed projects for us in the past. So as part of their course.
Yeah.
And that's helped us with our sort of recruitment, because we could already see they had the skills that we desired.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a couple of questions here. Alison said, are your visitors centre demographics as walk-in visitors mainly older people, 60 plus folk, or what are your demographics?
Yeah, so organically, our two biggest markets prior to COVID was 18 to 35-year-old European backpackers, and then 55 plus interstate Australian seniors.
Right.
So the two biggest markets. So obviously very different demographics, of course. So, of course, the international demographics gone missing. But very much still, so that means that we are interacting with older people. But what we've actually found is that most of the people that have been sending us Facebook inquiries have actually been 55, 60 plus people on Facebook, which surprised me. And we've run sort of campaigns recently in terms of booking packages using a free sort of pension pass you get with Trans WA. And our call to action was through Messenger, and it was overwhelming. And that Facebook ad was only pushing out to 65 plus people living in WA. So it's definitely sort of a growing market sort of that way. And yeah, we definitely see the future sort of lying in visitor servicing that way as well.
Yeah, because that's what we were talking about before. Like, yes, it's taken a hit and there's been a lot of things that have had to change. But in saying that, there's new opportunities that we haven't really focused on before.
And what we have to talk about, because apart from my assistant manager and senior consultant, the rest of the team are very young. And, the kind of the attitude that they had was that, most of our clientele, because they're older, wouldn't actually interact with us through social media. So why are we bothering, sort of thing? And obviously during this COVID time, that's definitely been proved wrong as such. And so I think it's very, very relevant.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got another question from Alison. Should young people also highlight things like their ability to develop and manage social media presence?
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So, because I was under the understanding, because a lot of volunteers are within the visitor centres, that they may be older staff, but it's actually more mixed maybe than what even I understood.
It is quite a mix. So, and the main reason why our employment strategy was a mix anyway was because of our demographics being the younger backpackers as well as the older Australians. We had to recruit to service our wide demographics.
Yeah.
So yeah,
absolutely.
so and the other thing as well is what we've kind of realised now with dealing mainly with intrastate customers, and it's probably going to be the way for the next 12 months at least, is that sort of family sort of demographic as well has started to approach us, and we really did not have that demographic, and that's mums and dads in the 30 to 50 age bracket with young kids, and that's been a challenge for us to adapt and train our staff to be able to service that demographic.
Yeah, absolutely. What have you done to deal with that? Like, if it's quite new, how do you deal with that? Something that you've not focused on before necessarily.
Yeah, well, it's been a challenge because most of our sort of staff in that way don't have kids, and they're not even considering it, and so they don't know the challenges of holiday
Yeah,
with children, like as such. So yeah, look,
binaries.
yeah. so yeah, it is. It has. Yeah, we've had to basically go through like a few case studies. We've sent them sort of. There's a few sort of online sort of workshops provided by sort of Tourism Council, particularly for Facebook and that sort of thing as well. And we've definitely been a lot more active on Instagram. That's definitely sort of a medium that demographic is definitely more plugged into.
Beautiful.
So essentially the reason why we've sort of realised we have that demographic to target is that organically they don't need a visitor centre as such, and that most of the time they do a lot of this research themselves. So yes, we've had a bit of increase organically, but we've also specifically targeted that demographic, and we've basically got on board a lot more things like sort of farm stays and that sort of thing as well.
Yeah.
And promoted that as a way of experiencing the state, camping. Sort of like camping is not a big thing for us normally for interstate and international people, but for families it definitely is. So we've had to train and increase our staff's product knowledge in those sorts of attractions.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, the talk is that obviously recessions and everything else, and that our young people will be the ones that bear the brunt of unemployment, basically. And some of them will continue to go and study higher up, and some won't quite know what to do. I guess from your perspective, do you still see the industry employing young people in the next, 2 years? And having that demand for young people and new staff.
Yes, I think so. I think in the immediate short term, it's kind of hard to see what's going to be like, because we're still feeling the effects of COVID and how it's going to affect us between now and the end of the year. So I'm not going to lie, I think it is going to be tough for the next 6 months. I mean, just even casually glancing at Seek, like at the moment. And, I think I looked there, and in the last week, there was only 20 new postings for all of WA across the tourism sort of category there. So, and, and especially for parts of the industry like touring companies and tour guides, that's definitely going to be a scarcity of opportunities there.
Yeah.
However, there's some of the growth parts of the industry is what we've been talking about in terms of digital marketers. People that can sort of deal with virtual content and help organisations create that. And also, if the existing staff members can't be effectively sort of retrained to be able to, or upskilled to deal with digital inquiries and also helping out management with reports and research and statistics gathering, then yes, there'll definitely be opportunities for younger people that organically already have greater experience with technology.
Yeah, absolutely. Because IT as a whole is going pretty good, because all our businesses need to be now a lot more digital. And I guess that's the one thing, even if students are doing tourism, they may not be aware that they could go into tourism, but within a digital area, a digital stream of tourism.
Yeah, and look, what we found in our workplace as well is that with our sort of more recent sort of both TAFE and sort of uni grads, they have been able to transition and help sort of build reports and work with Excel and databases and Zoom as well a lot easier than some of our workforce that has been with us for quite a few years and have done. It's not because they're older, it's because that they've worked a certain way for a number of years, and working differently across these sorts of mediums doesn't come naturally to them.
No.
Whereas with some of our younger employees at the moment, are working across Zoom or having experience with Instagram and knowing what hashtags to use and how to speak to someone over live chat and that sort of thing. It's very organic for them.
Yes.
So I think with young people that there'll definitely be opportunities for them in that sort of part of the industry. Accommodation, I know you mentioned that, you're trying to tell your students that tourism is a greater breadth of opportunities than just accommodation, but we've seen that part of the industry is probably going to be the quickest to recover.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we were saying. I was talking to Troy before about in one of the lessons I was delivering. You look at a hotel and they go, oh, I don't want to work in a hotel, but there's 12, 15 different jobs within that hotel that you could be doing, events and whatever. So, and that's just one place. So it is big. I'd just like to ask our teachers if there's anything else that you would like to ask before we sort of finish up, and I can give you some instructions on where to find the video. If you want to unmute yourself, feel free to unmute and you can ask any questions, or you can pop it in the chat and I can say it for you. Just waiting. Just to let you know that we are recording this presentation and it will be available for you shortly. We will send you out a link so that you've got a copy of it. And we'll send it out to any teachers that were unable to join in on the day as well. So we'll make sure that you have access to that. No one's has any questions by the sounds of it.
I guess I just possibly sort of add one more thing, like as well, is in terms of sort of training our staff, and again sort of training sort of your students as well. Is I know they said customer service has remained the number one sort of priority, but what we've actually sort of underlined and found is that and it's something hard to train or tell people is basically kind of giving something of themselves or their own personality in no matter which way they've talked to customers. And that's sort of relating sort of personal stories. And with the sort of the isolation that we've had experienced during COVID, customers are valuing that even more. So, it's not good enough just to give factual information. Customers are actually wanting to hear, your personal experience with a destination or with a accommodation that you stayed at in the past. That's definitely yielded more results from us. And again, it's something that we try to talk to our younger staff, because surprisingly, they may not have the life experience to be able to tell something from their own experiences, but anything that they can give for any sort of personal recommendations that they talk about is highly valued, even more so.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. A lot of these kids are young, and confidence comes with age and things like that. But it's those basic skills and just being aware of your body language and making eye contact. And, one thing that I try and push a lot is selling the benefit, not just the feature, so that they understand why it would be worth them doing something. So these are all great skills to teach students. We've got a couple of questions that I'll quickly just touch on. What are some ways Troy can see that teachers can gain tourism industry experience? So it's important that they feel a part of the industry, because part of that is being able to bring real life industry into the classroom. Obviously, businesses may or may not be open to going and visiting face-to-face just yet. But do you think there might be some operators or hoteliers that would be interested in communicating with teachers to share a little bit about their experience?
Yeah, it's most definitely. I mean, we're open to that as well. Is that we actually had a teacher from the Cocos Islands come and work with us for like a week or so.
Awesome.
So that she could better train her staff. I mean, she was more from a hospitality background, but she still she worked at a number of places around Perth for about a month, and we were one of them. So I think definitely sort of touring companies and everyone's going to be open to basically any sort of connections with different stakeholders. And if it means an improved employment pool, I think that all industry would be happy for that.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, hopefully maybe we can even work on trying to put it out there to industry and put a list together for our teachers so that they've got somewhere to go.
What I would encourage you guys to do as well is that, and I'll try to find the links and send it out to you guys, is that there is those Facebook groups I was talking about.
Yeah.
In regards with Tourism Council and Destination Perth, and there's many, many industry people that engage through those forums. So you can always put join the groups and ask for those sorts of opportunities.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I'll see what we can look into, and because I know that we want to try and maximise it. We don't hover around the same people all the time. So no, that's good. I'll look into that and I'll let the teachers know. What other question was there going to? Troy, I deliver a certificate in IT and digital media. Would you be open to a Zoom chat with my group about some of the ICT jobs that exist within the industry?
Yeah.
There we go. Go, Alison. Giovanna, are you open to group student visits?
Yep, done many of them in the past.
Lots of yeses. Keep asking people.
These ones from various educational institutions. So yeah, not a problem.
Fantastic. So yes, please. We'll create a list of the. Could create a list of the. Yes, I think I understand what you're saying, Giovanna. Would you put together a list of resources? Yes. So we'll get Troy to send information through to Paul, and we'll maybe even some of those Facebook links. Troy would be great, and then we'll put some together, and then we'll send it out to you as teachers to see if it can help you plan currency and PD as well. So yep, we can definitely do that. Any other questions that you guys would like to ask? No, that's great. Well, I'm going to firstly thank you, Troy, because without you, we don't know what's going on out there, and we can't be sending those messages back to the students, which is crucial. And your knowledge and your understanding is something that we really, really value. So thank you very, very much for letting us have a Zoom session with you guys. Teachers, I have to say a massive thank you. It's not a huge program, and we do get worried that if we don't get the support for these types of things, we can't keep them going. And we understand that people like Troy have gone out of their way to meet with us today. So we really, really appreciate that you have signed up to be a part of today, because it is important for us to keep this going and growing and getting that industry currency for you guys. Other than that, I'll be in touch shortly with where to find the link, any resources, things like that. We will have this recorded. And that's pretty much all from me. Thank you so much to all of you. Thank you, Troy. We really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you guys.
Awesome. Okay, that's great. Thanks, Troy. Really appreciate it.
Troy.
Have a great night, everyone. Thanks again.
Okay, thanks. Terrific.
Okay,
Thank you.
bye.
Bye.